The UK's forensic sciences system must undergo urgent reform or risk crimes going unsolved and an increase in the number of miscarriages of justice. That was the view of an inquiry led by the House of Lords Science and Technology Committee, which will be debated this afternoon, almost 2 years after its report was published. Experts fear a lack of funding and oversight is leading to forensic evidence being underutilised and misinterpreted in court. Well, let's go to Professor Ruth Morgan, Director at University College London Centre for the Forensic Sciences. She was a specialist advisor to the Lords Committee. Welcome, thanks for joining us. Do you agree with what the committee has said in terms of the scale of the problems?
I think what we saw as the committee heard the evidence across that very significant inquiry over a year was that the evidence really did paint a very worrying picture. And I think the fact that urgent action was called for and the word urgent was used 9 times in the report gives you a sense of the really significant challenges and concerns that were raised.
What impact is it having on justice?
Well, I think what was interesting about what the evidence that was heard was that it was looking at the entire forensic science system. So it was looking at not only what's happening under a crime scene in the police, but also in the courts and in the science that really underpins forensic science. And I think the real challenges we're seeing is that forensic science is suffering from being very fragmented across the police, the courts, the markets, the science that underpins it. And that's led to a very piecemeal approach when it comes to who's accountable and responsible for ensuring that forensic science is delivering what it needs to.
When they talk about forensic science, forensic evidence being underutilised and misinterpreted in court, I mean, obviously considerable weight is given to forensic evidence as incontrovertible evidence. What are the concerns around that?
I think there's a number of challenges. Certainly, we've seen significant cuts across the police, but also within the legal system. So the police are facing very significant challenges when it comes to identifying what materials to send for analysis and what kind of analysis to do. We're seeing challenges within the legal system with legal aid cuts and in making sure that it's possible for the defence to get access to forensic services to maybe get a second opinion when it comes to a piece of evidence that's being presented by the prosecution. And I think this all really resonates with something that the forensic science regulator has been talking about over a number of years, which is that it's under-resourced and we need wholesale changes to ensure that not only is forensic science identified as being useful, it is being exploited appropriately, but it also then gets to court with the science that underpins it so that we can interpret what it means. One particular issue we've often seen is that it's fantastic the way that we now have the technologies available to find infinitesimally small amounts of biological material to generate a DNA profile. But what we also need to know is how did that DNA get on that weapon? When did it get on that weapon? Because those are really critical questions when it comes to understanding whether that DNA is pertinent, whether it is useful, and whether it is going to be helpful for reconstructing events of a crime.
Is this damaging faith in forensic evidence in criminal context?
I think there are certainly some concerns being raised about to what degree we can go forward. I think we're certainly seeing incredible challenges when it comes to digital evidence, and that's again something that the committee really raised as a point of really significant concern, that needs to be addressed and it needs to be resourced so that we can build a capability of digital forensic science. Certainly there are challenges when it comes to quality standards in a system that is essentially a privatised market, and there's a lot of uncertainty in that market because of the impact of the cuts that we've seen. So it's certainly a really significant issue. I think there are lots of cases where the forensic science evidence is very clear and it's very helpful. It's when things have some uncertainty, some ambiguity, such as when did the DNA get there as opposed to whose DNA is it, that we're seeing real challenges. And those are the things that really need to be looked at. And certainly some of the recommendations that the committee made in terms of having some form of oversight across the entire forensic science ecosystem to have some strategy and essentially some accountability for ensuring that we can have trust in the forensic science system.
Professor Ruth Morgan, thank you.